I often ask myself, what possesses an employee to go into an exit interview and just dump on that HR manager? It's almost like the employee turns into Linda Blair from that old cult classic thriller movie, The Exorcist, where Linda Blair's sitting in her bed and her head's spinning around and she's spewing out profanities. I mean, it just seems like some employees, when they decide it is time, they go into that exit interview and they just feel they've got to turn into a Linda Blair kind of a character. Well, number one is I recommend not going into an exit interview. There's no benefit to you to do that. But if you do find yourself going into one of those sit downs, it's always best to be general, be concise, and overall be positive. There's no other way I see. No other way you should be when you're sitting in front of that HR manager. Well, listen, in this video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you 12 things you should never say during an exit interview. And that, my friends, is up next right here on Over 50 TV. Welcome back to Over 50 TV. My name is Lou Reyes. Before the break, I said I'm going to be telling you 12 things you should never say during an exit interview. And what I'll do specifically is I'm going to tell you what not to say, and then I'm going to tell you why you shouldn't say it. But before I do that, I am going to ask you to consider subscribing to this channel, subscribing to Over 50 TV. It's easy to do. Just hit that little red button. It's underneath this screen. Now, I also recently launched a second YouTube channel. It is called Side Hustle Rules. If you're somebody who is thinking your next big career move is going to be starting your own business, well, go ahead, go to that page if you would, and subscribe to Side Hustle Rules. So now let's get to this video. Let's really sit down and talk about what you should never say during an exit interview. My boss was horrible. They treated me poorly. I was stressed out all the time. I don't even know how I lasted this long. That's number one, complaining about your boss. And there's no reason to do that. When you do talk to the HR manager, they're going to listen to you, and maybe they're just going to think, oh, this person's just angry. I know that manager, and that manager really isn't a bad person. Well, you know what? They see that manager in a different or under a different light, certainly under a different light than you see that manager because you're work with them every single day. But here's the reason that I think you shouldn't berate. You shouldn't say negative things about your former manager. There could be a time, maybe down the road, when you will decide, you know what, the grass isn't always greener or wasn't greener where I'm at, where I ended up. I'm going to go back to that place and maybe I'll get a new manager. Well, you know what's going to end up happening, or I find happens more frequently than you could imagine? They won't hire you. They'll look at you and think, you know what, I'm going to hire this person. This person was a complainer, and now look, they've come running back to us. So absolutely, positively, it makes no sense to knock your boss to the HR manager because they will find out. I was amazing. I was so good at my job, and when I leave, this place is going to fall apart. Well, you know what? That's number two. And yeah, you do have employees who think they're great. And I'm not saying that they're not. I'm not saying that you weren't a great or you're not a great employee. But you know what? When you say that, the employer or the HR manager is just going to look at you and they're going to think, yeah, this is ego speaking. This is ego talking. Is this person really that good? And if they were that good, why would our manager let them leave? Again, this makes no sense to sit in front of that HR manager and let them know how great you are. It looks like your ego, or sounds like your ego's talking. And the other thing is that people will say, when I leave, it's going to fall apart because I was so great. Well, you know what? I've been at companies and I've seen employees leave a company, and what I find is 5 years down the road, that company's still there. So it makes no sense, and it doesn't benefit you to say it. I go back to saying, or being general, being concise, and overall just be positive when you're talking to that HR manager. If you find yourself sitting down there, yeah, you're there, you might as well be positive. You leave, you hold your head high, and you just walk out that door. This place is a sinking ship. That's your appraisal of the company that HR manager is working at. That's your appraisal of the place that your coworkers are working at. You're feeling compelled to influence them or attempt to influence them is not going to work. It's certainly not going to work. It's not going to work with that HR manager. They're there. They're being paid by that company. They're listening to you. They're going through, and sometimes they're just going through the motions when they're doing the exit interview anyway. But to say that, yeah, this place is a sinking ship, you know what? That's your opinion. That's your appraisal. That's fine and dandy. No problem with that at all. But you don't need to spew that out to somebody who's working there. No need to influence them whatsoever. It doesn't benefit you. I go back again in case you decide one day you want to come back to that company, or if you need a reference and you're going to be known as and remembered as somebody who is just a complainer. My new company is amazing. I am so lucky to be going there. Yeah, you're telling that to the HR manager, and maybe what you're trying to do is make them feel bad. Let them know how great things are, that you're marching on to a better future, and your better future certainly does include working at that company. And again, it's one of those things where I just don't understand, and I said in the very beginning, there's no reason to spew out things when you're sitting in front of that person. And I've heard people say that a few times in my career that, yeah, I'm going to a much better company. And again, it just goes back to wanting to, or maybe having some feeling that you need to make them feel bad about where they're working at. And if you really feel compelled to do that, I said earlier, just talk to your friends about it. Talk to a family member. Let them know how you're feeling. And you can go into that interview. You can feel positive. You can be general, as I said, be concise, and also just overall be positive about it. There's no reason to brag about your new company so you can make that employer, that HR manager feel bad. I don't want to do this exit interview. So now understand, you're sitting in front of that HR manager. You've already walked in, and basically when you walk in, the implication is, or what you're saying is, yeah, I'm going to be giving my exit interview. So while you're there, give the exit interview. Just be pleasant about it. But when you say, I'm here and I don't want to be here, well, it just makes it look like you're a little bit stubborn, and maybe, in my opinion anyway, a little bit immature, because you know what? If you allowed yourself to be put in that situation, deal with it the best way you can. Don't just sit there. Don't even go into that interview if that's what you're going to do. Nobody is happy here. Sally and Joe, yeah, they are unhappy. They can't wait to leave this joint. Wow. When you say that to an HR manager, number one, the first thing down their mind, or I should say what they're jotting down, what they're writing down, is they are going to be talking to the people that they are hearing from you are unhappy working for that company. And the employees, your coworkers, are not going to appreciate your blurting out that they're not happy. Whether it's true or not, it doesn't matter. Don't put them in that situation. So whatever you do, don't let the HR manager or the managers know who is happy and who's unhappy. It's not your place to be doing that. It was Sally that did that. It was Sally or Joe that drove that tow motor through the freezer door. Nobody knew it, but I knew it. So there you are. You're throwing your coworker under the bus. And maybe you're not doing it intentionally, or maybe you are. And if you are, shame on you. There's no reason to do that. There's no reason to point fingers, no reason to reveal things that you know about a coworker or coworkers. They won't appreciate it. They're going to be angry. They will not forget what you did. And you probably, if you have a shred of conscience in you, you know what? You're not going to forgive yourself for saying that. And it benefits no one. And this is one of those things where, yeah, there are employees that will leave a company and they will be happy to point fingers. And again, I just go back to, it doesn't benefit anyone. I will never work here again. There you are. You're sitting with the HR manager or whoever you're sitting and doing the exit interview with. You're sitting there with them and you blurt out, I'll never work here again. But you know what? You've been working there. You've been collecting a paycheck every single week. And if it was really that bad, why didn't you leave sooner? But no, you stayed. It makes no sense to be letting that HR manager know or uttering, I'll never work here again. Doesn't benefit you, certainly doesn't benefit them. After all, you're leaving, and they probably at this point aren't too concerned that you're never going to be working there again, because they will never hire you again. My recommendation in this, don't utter those words. Don't say it. Doesn't benefit you, doesn't benefit anybody. If you're doing it just because you want to make yourself look good, well, the only one that you're really impressing, I suppose, would be yourself. Don't swear, don't use profanity when you're sitting there. It is easy sometimes, for some people anyway, to let those words come out of their mouth. They're angry, they're frustrated, they're upset. And again, I go back to the very beginning of this video when I said I don't recommend that you attend or participate in an exit interview because, after all, as I mentioned, I don't see any benefit to you. But let's get back to the swearing. There's no reason to be unprofessional, no reason to just have to blurt it out. It just makes you look bad, and what it does too, and not only does it close that door, but at a certain point, that HR manager is going to be turning you off. And maybe in the beginning, the first word that comes out, the first profanity that comes out of your mouth, they may just be shutting the volume off and saying, I'm not listening to this jerk. This person is just going to go off. So yeah, this is another one of those things, and I know I keep saying this, it makes no sense to do some of these things, but it certainly makes no sense to use profanity, to swear when you're sitting in that exit interview. My manager had the most annoying habits. I don't know why she did this every single day, but she sat at her desk and she just made these weird noises whenever she was typing, and she would hum and she was singing. Don't be petty. The HR manager, that doesn't qualify. I don't see how that could even qualify as something that needs to be brought up in an exit interview, but you'd be surprised how many times people will bring up, they'll be digging deep and they'll be looking for any little reason to justify why they're leaving or to let you know how bad that company is. Yeah, it's just, those annoying habits, they're annoying habits that you endured for whatever period of time. No reason to bring that up. And again, it just goes back to making it look like, or obviously, to me, it makes it look like you're just somebody who enjoys complaining. Don't lie. Okay, you're sitting in front of the HR manager. Maybe they ask you a question that you just don't feel comfortable answering, or you flat out you don't want to answer it. Don't make up some reason or answer it with a lie. I find it takes a lot more energy to figure out or to lie about something than to just be flat out honest with someone. If you don't want to tell that HR manager, you're in the exit interview, you don't want to say something, just say, you know what, I don't feel comfortable talking about that right now. Or you could just simply say, you know what, let me think about this. I really don't know, or I haven't really given that enough thought, so let me really think about it. But it's always best just to, instead of fabricating some answer, instead of trying to figure out how to answer it in a way that's maybe political or politically correct, just don't say anything. It just takes a lot more energy to come up with these or to fabricate an answer than it does to flat out tell the truth or just to say, I don't know. Well, there you go, folks. I've just given you 12 things to never say in an exit interview. And what I've told you are a lot of things that I learned myself over the course of years, somebody who has hired hundreds of people. I also, as I've mentioned previously in previous videos, I ran a chain of business-to-business magazines, actually owned the chain, and I had the good fortune of sitting down with hundreds of business owners who shared some of the stories with me, things that I've shared with you here today. So please think about what I brought up today. If you do have any questions, you're always welcome to send me an email. You're also always welcome to comment in the comment section. But I hope that what I've given you will help you. And I hope that if you are somebody who is over 50 and you haven't heard any of these things already, well, I hope that you'll be able to go and use them if you find yourself in an exit interview. Well, as I always say, have a great day, everybody.